Gardner, Kansas. Call the meeting to order. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Before we get started, I did want to mention, many of you may be aware, but Rhonda Humble passed away. I apologize. Rhonda Humble passed away, I think Saturday, I believe it was September 24th. And most of you know Rhonda was with the Gardner News for just maybe 40 years, publishing owner.
Her dad published it with her.
Yeah. So many, many years in Gardner, and a big part of Gardner history. And so we're certainly sad to hear that. Her son Brandon is still the managing editor of the newspaper. So, but I would like to take just a couple moments of silence in her honor. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right. And I did read the Gardner News article. I didn't realize she was a national champion Scrabble player.
We did not know that either.
Yeah.
Not even Brandon. Nope.
Really?
She had an extensive vocabulary.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay. We will start off with a proclamation. All right, so this is a proclamation for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And whereas, while considerable progress has been made in the fight against breast cancer, it remains the most commonly diagnosed cancer and the second leading cause of death among women in the United States. Whereas each year it is estimated that more than 280,000 women and more than 2,650 men in the United States will be diagnosed with breast cancer, and more than 43,000 will die as a result of this disease. And whereas National Breast Cancer Awareness Month is a platform for educating women about the importance of early detection of breast cancer through mammography and other methods, and whereas through research and advocacy, significant advances have been made in the fight against breast cancer, including significant decreases in mortality. And whereas this October we recognize breast cancer survivors, those battling the disease, their families and friends who are a tireless source of love and encouragement, and applaud the efforts of our medical professionals and researchers working to find a cure for this deadly disease. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Todd Winters, Mayor of the City of Gardner, Kansas, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2022 as Breast Cancer Awareness Month in the City of Gardner, and ask the citizens of this community to unite to prevent breast cancer deaths through increased education and regular screening. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, before you get started, I wanted to thank you for doing the proclamation. I think education and getting the awareness out there is very key. I went through it 3 years ago, 2 surgeries, 47 doctor's appointments during the pandemic. This January should be 3 years cancer-free, so that's awesome. But this is good to get the word out because I know a lot of people during the pandemic, for all cancers, all screenings, didn't get screened because of all the appointment situations. So everything, early detection is key. So if you haven't gone out and gotten checked for any type of cancer that you need to be screened for, it's a good reminder for everything. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. All right. No public hearings. We'll move right to public comments. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to make comments about city matters or items on the agenda that are not part of a public hearing. If you wish to come forward, please limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. There is a time clock to your left. No profanity, no personal attacks. With that being said, come forward and state your name and address for the record. Podium is now open. No one coming forward? We will move to consent agenda. Is there an item on the consent agenda? I hear a motion for the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Shoot, second Deaton. Do we approve the consent agenda? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstain? Consent agenda passes. Planning and zoning consent agenda. Item number 1, consider accepting the dedication of right-of-way and easements on the final plat for Flint Trails. Objection. Do we have a motion on this?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Deaton, second Ween. That we approve the planning and zoning consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstained? Planning and zoning consent agenda passes. No committee recommendations, no old business. Moving on to new business. Business item number 1, consider accepting a voluntary annexation with landowner consent.
Good evening. This is a request to voluntarily annex the 80-acre tract of land just south of Grata and west of Clear Road. The property adjoins land already in the city and therefore can be annexed upon receipt of a voluntary annexation request from the property owners. The attached voluntary consent annexation agreement outlines the terms agreed upon by the city and property owners as conditions for this consent annexation. The terms are consistent with the direction of the governing body regarding annexation of rural properties in the city's planning and growth area east of I-35. Recommend accepting the voluntary consent annexation agreement from the property owner identified within and adopt ordinance number 2749.
Thank you, Jim. Is there any public comment on new business item number 1? Any council questions, comments? I hear a motion for consent, new business item number 1.
So moved.
Second. Motion Shoot, second Baldwin. That we accept the voluntary consent annexation agreement from the property owners identified within and adopt ordinance number 2749, an ordinance annexing land to the city of Gardner, Kansas.
Councilmember Ween,
Yes.
Councilmember Deaton,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Shute,
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Ordinance number 2749 passes. New business item number 2, consider adopting a resolution establishing a schedule of fees and charges for titles 8, 12, 13, 15, and 17 of the Gardner Municipal Code.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Staff recently brought forth some housekeeping ordinances in preparation for the fee update being presented tonight. The fee resolution before you tonight is the final legislative step in the current fee update process. Including this meeting's agenda packet was a detailed list of fee changes included in this resolution. This list outlined both the changes to be made to each fee and the reasoning for these changes. The majority of these fee changes are housekeeping updates intended to increase consistency across fees within a department or to ensure appropriate cost recovery for services. Prices have increased over time, making a related increase for certain fees necessary to ensure taxpayers are not heavily subsidizing the cost of these optional services and permits. Following the passage of this resolution, staff will update the comprehensive fee document found on the city's website to ensure all changes are included. Staff has also reviewed current fees that are not subject to governing body approval and will be updating those fees as necessary at that time as well. All fee changes will go into effect on November 1st, 2022.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Any public comment on new business item number 2? Council, questions?
I actually had one question really quick, Amy, and that is, I'm looking at the fees that are listed in the packet. The only
Yes.
question I had was, I know that we have the new fees listed. Some of them say no change, but you had stated in the presentation that there is an increase. Can you give us just a general idea of what the increases are in terms of a percent, or is there a way to do that? I know that it's a case by case, but overall, what are we looking at here?
Sure, they are kind of case by case. A lot of the permit fees, like for the electric code, fuel gas code, mechanical, they've increased on commercial permits only from 75 to 100. This is a good example of the cost recovery effort that we're going to put forth, because those inspections tend to take a little bit longer, use a little more manpower, so that's just ensuring we have appropriate cost recovery for those.
But the average residential impact is,
The average residential impact is relatively negligible. I don't believe we had any increases other than to deck permits, which was very small and base. It was changing it from only having one type of deck permit to having a covered deck permit and an uncovered deck permit. So that necessitated breaking out the cost. And we also added a retaining wall permit fee for retaining walls over 4 feet, because those do necessitate an inspection.
correct. Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? All right, do we hear a motion for new business item number 2?
So moved.
Second.
Just say Mark.
Motion Deaton, second Mark. Baldwin. Then we adopt resolution number 2113, a resolution establishing a schedule of fees and changes for titles 8, 12, 13, 15, and 17 of the Gardner Municipal Code. City Clerk.
Councilmember Deaton,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Shute,
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilmember Ween,
Yes.
Resolution number 2113 passes. Okay, move right through that. We'll go to council updates. Start with Captain Kraut.
Mayor, would it be right if I stepped to the podium?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, I like to talk with my hands. I can't talk as well when I have to stand there and push the button all the time. I also apologize for slowing your meeting down for just a few minutes here.
Oh, you're
Chief was a little under the weather today, so he had me come. Otherwise, he'd be up here speaking to you of this. Many of you, I'm sure, have seen the news here in the last couple of weeks where the Sheriff's Department has greatly increased their salary. We came to you earlier this year as a council, and you were very gratuitous to us and to the rest of the city. But it was just a start, and we knew it was a start at that time. I wanted to bring a little bit of perspective into what we're dealing with at the police department right now that facilitates us getting ready to come back to you again, asking for some more. We're working with finance and the city administrator at this time to bring something to you, so I'm not asking you for anything today. I just want to make you aware of why we're coming back. So we recently, back, what was that, probably in January, February, around then when we did that last pay raise, we were able to immediately get a handful of people hired on, worked good, got us down to where we were just needing one more person to fill. At that time, we really thought things were going well. A few of the other agencies started adjusting their pay higher than what we had. We had tried to go middle of the road, I think, whenever we did what we did in February. I can tell you now we're back down within 25 cents of the bottom for everybody in our area again. So when we were down by one, we were able to, at that point, thought everything was going great. Within the last, about the last 3 weeks here, we lost one officer to another agency, which happens from time to time. I can't necessarily say that one was because of salary. It could have been. Could have just been not a good fit for us, wanting to go to a bigger agency that had more opportunities. It could be. We lost 2 officers to personal reasons, which basically they just wanted to get out of law enforcement. Unfortunately, we're seeing that more and more. We're even seeing it with young people that we hire that have put themselves through 4 years of college to get a criminal justice degree, and will come in, go through our academy, come back, and we literally had an individual leave the first week out of the academy and just came to us extremely upset, and this just isn't, it's not for me, and it's not for everyone. We recently lost another officer to another agency that I do feel comfortable with saying was due to pay. They were able to go take a considerable raise right off the bat and go right back into them. So we have gone immediately in the last 3 weeks from being down 1 to where we just needed 1 to fill it to being down 5 again. And we know for a fact that we have 2 others that are currently looking at other agencies right now that money probably is going to be a factor with them. So we could go down 7 by the end of the year very quickly. We recently, very recently, ran a hiring process. We had 20 people that confirmed with us that they wanted to come test. On the day of the testing, only 10 showed up with no, just don't show up, which we've started to see more and more as well. Out of the 10 that took the test, only 6 passed our test, which is not an overly difficult test. It is, we are not doing anything different than any other agency as far as that goes. It's a standardized police entry test. It tests you for some very basic math, which we actually allow them to use a calculator now that we didn't used to. It just tests for some very, very simple comprehension where you read and come up with some answers based off what you read, and a couple of other things, but it's very basic. So we only had 5 of them test, or 5 of them pass, 6. So out of those 6, whenever we get them to pass it, we then have them fill out a background packet, which basically goes into more depth, their background history as far as their work history, criminal history, things like that, because we need that to be able to continue on in our process. Out of those 6, we only had 3 that turned that in. So 3 more of them just said, looked at the packet basically and said, yeah, I'm probably not gonna be able to make it any further with some of these questions. One of those, unfortunately, needed an extra page for their criminal history because they had too much. So we obviously didn't move them on forward. So out of that, we came down to 2. So we started with 20 that came into test. We made it down to 2, and only 1 of them is moving on at this point. So that's the problem we're seeing right now. Now, to put it a little bit in perspective, and unfortunately I'm dating myself here, in about 2 weeks I'll be 26 years here with the city. And so about 27 years ago, when I first started trying to get into law enforcement, I tested at one point with Olathe Police Department, and there were 2 openings at that time for Olathe, and there were over 300 people that tested in my testing class. And that's where we're at now. We don't get the people in here that we need to. And there's lots of different reasons. I can't say pay is the only reason. It's just become harder and harder to find people that are willing to put a gun on every day and go out and make life and death decisions, you know, at a moment's notice, and then get critiqued for it over and over and over and over again. But we can overcome that. But we here in Gardner, unfortunately for us, are competing with 30 or more agencies right here in the metro area. Now, we are not Overland Park, we're not Olathe, we're not the Sheriff's Department, we understand that. But we still have to compete with those people for the same individuals that they're competing for, we're competing for. So that's why we would want all of you to be thinking about it a little bit, and don't be surprised here, you know, in the next few weeks or next few council meetings when we start coming back with another presentation for you, hoping that maybe Matt doing it at that time, asking for some change for our pay again already. I'm willing to take any questions. I've got a few numbers that honestly I found out about 3 o'clock this afternoon that I was going to be up here speaking, so I've did a little bit of quick research online for some starting pays that are simple to find online. I can answer a few questions if you have any. And I do want to throw in there that this is not just a Kansas City Metro issue. As an example, Allen, Texas today, I just discovered this today, which they're about 100,000, so they're obviously much larger than we are, but they're also smaller than Olathe, smaller than Overland Park, located near Dallas-Fort Worth, so they're in a metro area like us. Just moved their starting pay for a brand new person with no experience to $36 an hour. So it's not just here. Salina in Kansas is almost $3 an hour, not quite $3 an hour higher than us on the starting, and they're out in the middle of nowhere by themselves. So it's going on everywhere, and we're just finding that we have to get these people in the door, and then we have to keep them. So these packages that we're going to be coming to you with aren't just going to be a request for starting to raise pay. We're gonna be looking at retention and what can we offer people to get them to stay. And a lot of that will be able to fall over into the rest of the city as well. There's just lots of different things that we can look at, the other departments in the city, and I apologize to them. I understand they need people just like we do, but it's my responsibility to stand up for my people, and that's what I'm here doing today, and just letting you guys know we're definitely gonna be coming back and need some help. So.
Okay,
Sure.
you first.
What is considered fully staffed? You said we're down 5, almost 7. What do you consider fully staffed so I can?
Well, for us, full-time employees right now, we are allotted for certified 37. And that includes the chief, myself, Captain Hayes, the admin, in other words. So that's all of our full-time employees, or I correct, all of our certified full-time employees is 37.
Who does the promotion for candidates? I mean, how does that handled, or is it just?
So we have, we have policy in place that covers how many people we'll have on a board. The general first thing to start on now is our application. They have to fill out an application. It's an online application. Literally gives you almost no information. It's become, and it's not just here, that's standard now because of different rules and different things that people have decided you can't ask until you get further into the process. So it literally just almost gives us a name. I mean, there's almost nothing else to it. So we have come to the point where anybody that applies, we allow them to test at this point. So the first step is they come in and test. We do that test, which I gave you some example of what we're seeing on that. Once they do the test, then if they pass the test, we are automatically moving them on to an interview. We're not even worrying about sorting through anybody else at that point. We're just getting them in for an interview. Now the interview board, we generally speaking right now, because everybody we're hiring is for patrol, so Captain Hayes actually sits on that board. He will bring in an FTO, which is field training officer, so we have somebody there that will be doing our field training with people, so they're well aware of our policies, our procedures, and how they do things. And then he also tries to grab just an officer, a younger officer a lot of times. We just did an interview boards late last week. You know, we had an officer on here that has not been here very long at all that was on it. So, and then usually we'll also try to throw a supervisor on there, either a corporal or a sergeant, onto that board. So there's usually at least 3, I believe it is, and usually 4 of us, and then HR is in on that as well. So that's the hiring board. So once they pass that, that's when we then ask them to fill out our background packet. So I mean, it's a big, and I'm sorry, I correct myself. We try to get them to fill out the background packet before we do the interview. That way we can look at their history and see what we have. Now we do some sorting before then, as an example I gave you. If somebody has a criminal history that's basically we're not comfortable with, or something that would disallow them from even being able to be an officer, we just won't invite them in for an interview. They'll get a letter from us or an email from us saying, sorry, thanks, but no thanks. So once we do the interview process, we come in, they will rank those people. And again, at that point, they're asking a little more detailed questions, and they're trying to determine how will that person fit into the department, or how do they answer the questions about, you know, shift work, or dealing with your home life and dealing with being a police officer. And generally speaking, most people have done some homework. They know how to answer questions, and you'll get a lot of the answers you want to hear at that point. But surprisingly anymore, it has changed. It used to be almost everybody knew how to answer it. Anymore, you'll get people in there that literally will talk themselves out of a job. They will tell you more about the bad things about them than they do the good things, and which can work to our benefit, obviously, because we can find those things out ahead of time. So once the ones we pass on from there, immediately start into our background process, which includes a polygraph that they have to go take. We have discovered that we weed a lot of people out in the polygraph because discover that they're going to have to get hooked up to a machine, to a professional that's going to ask them some questions, and they disclose things that they forgot to tell us about in our background packet. And again, there's certain things there that just flat disqualify you, that you just aren't able to do. So during that process, then the detectives are at that point starting their background, which is extensive. You know, we don't believe we should lower our standards at this point. That's not fair to the citizens. It's not fair to anybody if we just start bringing in people that aren't up to our standards. So we will run several processes sometime before we'll even find one person. So the background then at that point, if they've made it all the way through the background, then they'll come up to the chief and they'll do an interview with the chief, and he'll talk to him, or I'll talk to him, whoever happens to be here at the time. We'll interview them ourselves. Again, once in a while, you'll find somebody that we make a decision at that point that just doesn't feel like it's gonna be right, but very rarely. Most time, if they make it that far, they're good to go. And then once you're there, you can't move on to the next step until you've made a conditional offer. So at that point, we make them a conditional offer that if they can pass the psychological exam and drug screen and the physical, just physical test, not physical agility, just physical, then they are okay to go, and we'll bring them on. So does that answer your question?
So actually, I was even more interested, how do we promote?
Oh, the promotion. Well, the promotion's very similar. I try to remember, other than the chief's position, I don't believe in my entire career here.
No, how do we
How we
promote?
advertise our open.
Oh, how do we
advertise
promote?
Get-
Oh, I'm sorry.
get
Open
Open position. I'm thinking like the fire
Very good.
department.
No, I'm sorry. I understand now what you're
Yeah, it
saying.
has like a high school program.
So we've made a big push on that with, we have our community officer, John Steinmetz now, who's usually here. He's had a family death, so he's out of town today. He has started doing much more work on online, Facebook, social media. You'll see signs when you walk in the doors back here. We have signs up here and several other places all around town, the bigger stores and things. He's gone door to door to them. We're starting to look more now. When we were only needing one more, we had slowed down a little bit on looking at going to job fairs and things like that. We just received a notice of a job fair that's here in town in the next couple of weeks, and immediately reached out to them and said, we want to come. They're full. They put us on a waiting list. They said, if somebody cancels, we'll get back with you and let you come.
Are there like police associations or whatever?
Yes. Now
that you can,
yes, we already
Post.
advertise
Okay.
on, I believe we advertise on LinkedIn, we advertise on the Kansas Peace Officers Association website, several others that we advertise on whenever we do the promotion.
I think you brought up a good point, that is the school district.
Yes.
Do we have an active program for possibly doing some educational type of exercises with getting people who might be interested in law enforcement?
We utilize our SROs a lot for that right now. Again,
Okay.
there are some other programs we would like to be able to do, but we're hamstringed by manpower,
Yeah,
to
exactly.
be honest with you. A lot of our people are working 12 to 14-hour days right now. And it's not fair to them to make them come in all the time on every day off to do something different. We, as an example though, they just had their first homecoming parade that they've had for a long, long time that I know of. And I strive to get us afloat in it, and we put all of our people that are alumni from Gardner that work for our department on that float.
Oh, that's awesome.
And put it through and announced, they announced them and everything, said what year they graduated and who they were. And I felt like maybe that would be a little more close to home to some of them, because we do have several, even some of our younger officers that are on the road right now are graduates of Gardner High School. So yeah, we're trying to push more into all of that. In this next budget that you've already approved, I added a recruitment line so that I could have some money for recruitment that we never had in there before. So yes, we're trying to push as much as we can out. Social media is a big thing anymore, so we really have pushed on it to try to get that word out there, and that has helped quite a bit. But here recently, obviously, there was posting on social media where somebody had got on there from the military and said, you know, I've got a brother that's coming back from the military, you know, they're looking for a job, they were an MP in the military. We
saw
used to
that.
get a lot of those, and then you probably noticed that almost everybody that answered to me said sheriff's department, sheriff's department.
Yeah.
Because guess what? They were just in the news with what they're paying people. So, you know, I understand we probably may not be able to compete dollar for dollar with some of these bigger agencies, but we've at least got to get closer.
So that kind of leads me right into my next question. So
Mhm.
let's talk dollars and cents. I know that we had a, what was it, I can't remember the exact amount of the adjustment. I think it was like 6%, wasn't it, Jim?
It was a dollar amount.
Yeah, but I think for an officer one, it was like 6% or something like that. And it was not very much. I understand that. That was what we could afford at the time. How far, and I know you didn't have a lot of time to look at the numbers, so apologies in advance, but how far do you think we are outside of the mid-range for Johnson County right now in terms of our salary scales?
Probably $2.50 to $3 from the average.
So
right now.
times 37 officers, potentially. So do the math, $3 times 2080.
$250,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that sounds low, Lee. I know they're hiring at $28.50 to start. We're not $2.50, $3 from there.
No, we're 6 from the high.
Yeah.
From if you're asking for the average,
I'm talking about the midpoint.
you know,
'Cause we
the
can't get to the high.
midpoint, we're at least 3.
So
I mean, we're
We'll never
2
get to the
3
sheriff's
away.
office.
So-
We'll never get.
So we talked about a number of different alternatives to try to get through this. There's really no great options.
No.
I mean, if officers keep leaving, you know, when I first got here and took the chief's job, we could rely on the sheriff's department to supplement us when we didn't have officers. And that's not happening anymore, and it's not gonna happen. Because they're down over 50 officers.
That's why they increased
So-
their scales.
So
yeah.
the alternatives are, and right now, we're putting all that staffing on the backs of the officers that are here through overtime, which is gonna wear them down. So the options are we can cut the number of officers on the road, which is not ideal, either for the citizens or for the officers. We're looking at shift work, we're looking at everything to try to overcome this, but if we keep having an exodus, we're gonna be in trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, losing that many officers in that short a period of time, it's difficult to overcome, especially when you have hundreds of openings across departments in Kansas and Missouri. I mean, Kansas City's down over 300 some odd officers. So there's going to be some choices to make and we haven't gone through the details of this, but I mean, we're probably going to have to raise starting pay and have some compression at the bottom. I mean, because we can't afford to move everybody up the same percentage. You know, we have to get people in the door. The sheriff's department they reinstituted steps. They top out after 12 years, but they're getting 4% annual steps, and then they can add a COLA on top of that. So, I mean, it's going to be.
That's aggressive.
It is, and everybody else. I mean, Lenexa, Leewood.
They're all going to have to do the same thing to compete with the sheriff's office.
Right.
They're going to start losing their people to the sheriff.
I mean, there are some things. A lot of people leave for large departments because there's a number of opportunities to do different things, whether it's detective or canine or traffic. But one of the appealing things for Gardner is there's not as many high-risk interactions. So we may get officers that want to come here and do things that or not do things that they're encountering in bigger cities. So, I mean, if we can get them in the door, and you know, we have a great station, we have a great command staff. I mean, we get them in the door. We have to stay competitive because having them walk out the door, I mean, we're going to be paying a lot more in overtime, and then we're just going to drive these officers in the ground, and more of them are going to leave.
And the additional expense of trying to fill that position. It's always more expensive to.
I mean, we just lost.
Try to hire.
We lost an officer to basically take a security job at a school district for $5 more an hour. So that's what we're competing against.
Well, so you're gonna come back,
Oof.
come back with some numbers, correct?
Yes.
We will soon. And also, and I've mentioned this before, anything besides just numbers, that, benefits, one-time costs, those kind of things that might be attractive, if we could get creative with some of that as well, I think that's, in the long run, cheaper. So.
Absolutely. And all of those, but basically what we like to say right now is nothing's off the table right now.
Can't be.
We're at the point where we're currently looking at scheduling right now to try to come up with some innovative ideas on how we can make our schedule work better for the officers, without shifting them back to an 8-hour shift. 8-hour shifts are basically a thing of the past. I worked them for years and years and years, but you get stuck with Tuesday and Wednesday off for months sometimes, and that's just not appealing to people. They want a chance to work some. That's why these 10-hour shifts have been a big plus. We've been doing it because we rotate through them. They're a little complicated. I could sit here and try to tell you, but I just dragged the meeting on. But you have an option. You get some weekend time off through the rotation. They're fine, but 10-hour shifts take more people, and we're starting to run out of those people. And like I said, it's the overtime, as Jim said, it's wearing our people down. And ultimately, if they can go somewhere like the sheriff's department and work in the jail, and not have to be out in the rain and not have to be out in the cold, and it's becoming more enticing when they can all of a sudden make quite a bit more money to do that. When it's not so much money extra to do that, most road officers don't want to do that. They would rather work in the rain or be out helping people as opposed to working in the jail environment. Other people work in the jail environment their entire career, and it is a good fit for them. But unfortunately, that's where we're looking at right now. They're obviously the big one everybody's looking at right now because they just made this bold move. They made their bold move because some other cities in the area had made some moves while we were in the process of doing ours. They had made some moves. So by the time we did ours, we were already behind the 8 ball just a little bit, but we weren't bad. But now we're rapidly dropping down to the bottom again, very, very, very quickly. So.
Any other questions? Okay, so we'll just look for some numbers. Next council meeting, or are we talking a little ways away?
I think we're bleeding right now. I think we're probably behoove us.
November?
Probably, yeah. We're working hard with finance, to answer any questions, things they need so that they can get it, and then obviously with the city administrator to try to bring you the best that we feel we can. So, thank you.
Thank you. City Clerk Sharon Rose.
Last week I shared the council committee teams, and there was a vacancy with the exit of Mr. Van Potter that does need to be filled. Now may be a good time for anyone to make any changes that they may wish to make.
Like right now?
Yeah, right now, yeah. So, do you happen to have that spreadsheet?
Yeah, I don't have that in front of me. I
available
apologize.
to put up on the screen?
I was fine with what I had. I can move if I need to. I think we should probably start off with Mark to see if you even.
Well, let's see if we can get those because we can do it actually in real time. Yeah, she can she puts it up. Yeah, I have faith that Sharon can get this done. All right, well, let's put Mark on all the committees now.
Yeah.
Ball one and everything. Yeah.
We can come back. Yeah.
That's fine.
Let's do that.
Yeah, let's.
Matt?
Yeah, a couple updates. One, staff has been working on the electric rate study, and we're making good progress on that.
Great.
We'll plan to have a presentation to council in November. And then going back to that topic we just talked about, to have that overall comprehensive approach that we were talking about, that's gonna take some time. But we can probably model out some ballpark numbers for that fiscal capacity workshop.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yep. That's exactly. I was thinking of that, the funding and fiscal capacity part of that whole discussion. We've got a lot of things to discuss, so yeah, that's one of the big ones.
Amy?
Sure, we've had a
And we'll have application forms available for citizens at that time, and we'll also make them available on the website later that week.
Should be a good program.
City Attorney, right?
Nothing from it.
Bruce Baldwin.
Nothing.
Wow.
Gone said nothing.
All this way just to say nothing. Jason, Parks and Rec.
Quick update on the parklet. City staff will be moving that off-site storage for the winter because the library is doing some maintenance on their roof. So instead of putting some time and effort into making it look nice, we're gonna wait till the springtime. We'll stain it, put some TLC into it, and then bring it back out when the winter turns.
Thank you.
Community Development.
3 quick items. Thursday, October 6th, this Thursday, the New Century Air Center Public Information Workshop on their land use compatibility plan will be out at the Field House at 6 p.m. until 8 p.m. So that's open to the public. Wednesday, October 12th, we have our Community Outlook Workshop. WSU is coming up to speak at the Hampton Inn from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. And then there will be no EDAC meeting next week in light of those 2 events. So.
Public Works.
We put out today the 167th Street overlay project that'll go from Kill Creek to Center is going to start this week on Wednesday. There will be disruption along that whole corridor. It will be 1 lane open during work hours and both lanes open after work hours. Probably about 4 to 5 weeks on that. It's the same contractor we had that did the other overlay on 167th, and that went very well. So we're encouraged that this one should go fine.
Will that the 2 lanes be open on the weekends, on Saturdays?
So they will be working Saturdays in order to get this in before winter.
Okay.
So there will be some disruptions on Saturdays as well, but not Sundays.
So for events at Celebration Park, that's gonna cause an issue.
So yeah, I'm working with Kellen's staff on once we kind of get a time frame, trying to direct traffic to utilize 159th Street for soccer and football. So once we get those details, we'll send that out via social media.
Great, thanks.
City Administrator, Jim.
Tomorrow is Southwest Johnson County EDC Developer Day, and the mayor and I are hosting a bus tour around the city to look at development opportunities. And then on Thursday is the committee of the whole meeting at the county level to discuss 199th Street, and Kellen and I will be there. I'll give you an update at the next meeting.
Perfect time.
It is.
Great.
Sharon, you're awesome.
All right.
So that's interview team. The EO is the ex officio. So they're the ones that are actually on the committees. Yeah.
Right, and I am looking at it. I had interest in the Airport Advisory Board, just with my background in aviation, and then the Economic Development Advisory Board as well, and then I'm perfectly fine just being on parks as well. So
As an EO.
I mean, I don't want to take all 3. I'm just saying that's.
Well, now you've got them, so you're that's it. I'll be happy to move over to Citizens Police Advisory, and you can have my interview spot on Airport
I prefer
Advisory.
to keep my citizens police advisory.
No, I'm on the interview team.
Oh, I thought you were talking to EO.
No.
If
Well,
Mark's
that's
good with
not
being
EO.
EO for Parks and Advisory, then we're done with EOs.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
That's fine. And then, if you slides 1 row down and Mark fills
The interview team
on C2 and C4.
Yep.
but he can't be. Do you want him on the interview team for C4 as well?
No, I thought you would do C.
No, that's
No,
fine.
I'm
That's
on
fine.
as the EO on C.
Okay, so
So he'd be on C3,
that's fine.
and you take C2 and C4.
That's fine.
Unless somebody else was wanting to
Let's-
shift around.
Oh no. I'm good.
I'm fine with
So you're the EO on Parks. That's good.
That's fine.
And then Steve, you're the interview team
Or
Police
CPAC.
Advisory.
Yes, CPAC.
And then you'll be part of the interview team for the airport and for the
Echo Deck.
Echo Deck.
Okay, you're gonna have to help me with
Parks.
Right?
Right.
He fills all blanks except C3, you see.
Yeah, just slide me down one.
Okay, say that again.
Yeah,
Put
take,
mark in all
yeah,
openings except make C in C3.
yeah, take me from airport, put me on CPAC, and then put Mark Ween in the other two.
Okay, so let me do this again and make sure this is what we're looking at.
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay. All right, move to, actually, Sharon, did you have anything else?
No.
No, okay. Move to council. Councilmember Deep.
I have nothing tonight, thank you.
Councilmember Ween.
No, I'm good, thank you.
Councilmember Roberts.
I'm good, but thank you for asking.
Council Vice President.
Yeah, I was just going to ask. It was bad news for the Grand Slam. I understand why we had to do it, but I know that that's always difficult to cancel events. But smoke on the trails. I haven't seen anything about that. What's the situation on that?
We had that event
Oh, we already had the
Two-
event.
yeah.
Well, that makes sense. That's why I didn't see anything on it.
2 Saturdays ago, I believe.
2 Saturdays.
2 or 3 Saturdays.
Where was I?
Paper did a nice article on
Okay, well I missed that.
This is a common question.
I know this is the second time now because I missed the Echo Dev meeting 2 weeks ago, and then I missed Smoke on the Trails. Oh my goodness gracious! Just strike that from the record, please.
You know, he becomes a
And,
grandpa. And he starts
Oh
forgetting
gosh,
things.
yeah. Thanks a lot. Yeah, you know they say memory's the second thing to go. I will scratch that from the record and say I have nothing else.
We started at 7.
Yeah, no, I was here for that. Oh my goodness. Oh, I'm so out of it.
Council President.
I can't top that, no.
Thanks, Mark.
And I don't think everything either, so
I just want to leave.
to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Deaton. Second, Shoot. Grandpa Shoot. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?